Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. How you doing? LSU Odyssey Live Lane Kiffin Watch 2025 is continuing, and then we're of course going to talk about Michael Van Buren. Is he LSU's 2026 quarterback? We're going to really dive into that and kind of go deep into that story. But really, where else can you start but continuing where we left off last night with the Lane Kiffin story here? And will he be LSU's next head coach? Will he stay at Ole Miss? Will he go unthinkably to Florida, which I think would be a shocking decision, a very poor decision for for his future. What? That's just my opinion. I'm not someone trying to counsel to Lane Kiffin or whatever. Like, no, I just don't understand why if you would leave Ole Miss, the situation you have at Ole Miss, for Florida. I mean, it's especially the situation Florida is in. So whether he goes to Florida, I'm not sure right now on Florida, but I can tell you a lot of other things regarding him and his conversations with LSU. And what we can also delve into is what he said on the Pat McAfee show, which really interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. He didn't quite come out and address the whole I'm going to stay, I'm going to leave, but he definitely said there was no ultimatum. He said there was no ultimatum today on the Pat McAfee show. That Ole Miss has not given him some mid-season ultimatum where he has to sign this extension or else he won't coach the college football club. That's okay. So that's what Kiffin is saying. That's he did yoga with the athletic director today. Morning yoga. You got Kawan Lacey, the running back, in the background hanging out, puts his arm around Kiffin on the Pat McAfee show. We got the clip of pretty much most of the show. I'm just maybe just going to show a few little snippets of it. Don't want to get copyrighted, but it for me it was very interesting. Kind of, let's keep this thing together. We have a shot to win a national championship. Let's just stay in the moment, and we will back off the ultimatum, Kiffin. You don't have to leave just yet. That's kind of what the vibe of the whole thing seemed to me, of like there's a denial of almost like reality where like, oh, everyone loves it here and I love it here and I love what we're building here, and just all the politically correct stuff you would expect to hear from the coach. But what else is he supposed to say? Really, what else is Kiffin supposed to say in that moment? And also, I mean, if he said anything else, it would be crazy. But obviously, he went on to the Pat McAfee show for a designed reason, and that was because either Kiffin himself or Kiffin, obviously Ole Miss PR department, were like, we have to put a stop to this ultimatum thing right now, and we'll get this kind of done away with, and there won't be a real one, or there never was one. It's kind of murky there. Was there an ultimatum? Was there not an ultimatum? If you listen to Ole Miss insiders, people who actually cover Ole Miss every single day, they've all said there isn't an ultimatum where if he doesn't, sign the extension by the Egg Bowl, that he'll be fired or booted out. It's that if he doesn't sign the extension before the playoff, before the beginning of any playoff, SEC championship game, that type of stuff. And maybe they've backed off on that now and said, maybe they've accepted what's about to happen as far as Kiffin leaving Ole Miss. And maybe they've accepted that and kind of, okay, well, we will see where this season goes, and we'll back off this ultimatum thing. We'll go on the Pat McAfee show, kind of make this go away. I don't know. I don't know. There's interesting angles from where you can look at this story, from where it's going. But that is just optics, and that is just discussing the optics of Ole Miss. That's just discussing the problem that Ole Miss have on their hands. They have a coach who is literally delivering their greatest season ever. I mean, and he's actively sending his wife, who is his ex-wife, but they've reconciled. So probably some type of remarriage is in order there, you know. So they're together. He sent her on these missions to both to Gainesville and now to Baton Rouge. You don't do that for no reason. And people have said, oh, he's doing that for an extension for more money from Ole Miss. And it's like, maybe. But LSU's private plane doesn't get you. And you don't find LSU in the current situation that they're in where Lane Kiffin is their number one target. And he always was. Saban was someone that, hey, swing for the fences. See if you can get this guy. See if you can get the golden goose. Well, okay, Verge tried his best, couldn't, or at least couldn't at this point. Who the hell knows in college football anymore, guys? Like, obviously it looks like Saban's done, but I'm just saying, like, you never say never. But now, they've turned to where, okay, this was our number one realistic target from the beginning, Lane Kiffin, because we have the connections with Lane Kiffin already, right? LSU's got Austin Thomas in the building, Frank Wilson, who coached with Lane Kiffin at Tennessee. There's a myriad of other connections as well. I mean, Whit Weeks is dating his daughter. And you need him to come back next season to not only compete, but also to keep your roster together. Like, you desperately need Whit Weeks to come back for another season. And, you could also maybe even add Harold Perkins onto that. Hey, you haven't quite fulfilled your destiny collegiately, and you haven't really fulfilled, like, the player you're supposed to be at the NFL. Do you want to enter the NFL still as a project, Harold Perkins? Or do you want to go one more year at LSU and deliver the season that, like, really you still haven't been able to do wire to wire? And it's a shame, because we've seen the real Harold Perkins at the first of this season, specifically against Clemson. And then you saw the real Harold Perkins over the last few games. But that's another guy that you feasibly could get back for next season. You're losing a lot, though, from this roster. But Lane Kiffin, given a lot of money, given the resources that he knows, a dude like Austin Thomas, they've worked together. They know how to roll with this together. This is a situation that could work at LSU beyond. I mean, he worked with Frank as well. That's the guy who's going to be doing your recruiting. And we're actually going to have a head coach at LSU if LSU signs Lane Kiffin that actually will recruit. I mean, this could be something special if Lane Kiffin is actually, pursuing other jobs. And that's all about, I think the first strike of that is going to be if randomly some hiring is made, which is just so, it would be so, like, landmark moment of, like, crazy watershed moment in college football type of situation if that were to happen. But really, I think before that, you're going to see whether there was an ultimatum or not, by how far, how deep Lane Kiffin continues to coach Ole Miss, if they continue on a run, if they don't, choke again in the Egg Bowl. Because they could choke in the Egg Bowl here and then lose an SEC title game or something like that. I'm not sure if they would qualify for the SEC title at this point. If they had two losses, I think they still would. We'd have to see how this shakes out. That could mean, like, Kiffin gets out of jail and doesn't have to worry about pursuing another job through the playoff. He's done. He's good. And now, is it LSU? Is it Florida? I so badly want to take Florida off the table because Florida just sounds like such a stupid move. Just a stupid move. Like such a lateral backwards move. Just a terrible move. Oh my gosh. And Sage enters with the LSU scarf. Sage enters with an LSU scarf. What's up, Bubba? So Kiffin, his name sounds like Dunder Mifflin or like, I don't know. It sounds very strange. Kiffin. It sounds so weird to me. Kiffin. Lane Kiffin. The name Lane Kiffin has been someone that a lot of LSU fans have wanted as an LSU head coach for a long time. A lot of LSU fans have been like, "That's my guy. I want him to come to LSU," and that's been something that's shocked people. It's been something that people are like, "No way, we can't. LSU would never be good with Lane Kiffin." But man, I really do believe that Lane Kiffin, if he does not take this opportunity and go to LSU, he could really be throwing away an opportunity he may never get again, where this is a proven championship program that has the money to get you, has the money to commit to revitalizing the roster. And then also there'd be a lot of guys who would stay because the name of Kiffin, right? And you don't want to throw away some type of an opportunity like this if you're Lane Kiffin, where you really have an opportunity of a lifetime, where this program, this roster that can be, turned from a very roster with a lot of holes and a lot of concerns, a lot of worries, into being a juggernaut if you retain the right guys and then you pursue the right guys through the portal. It sucks that we're losing guys like Delane and Halsey, specifically those two. Like those are just two big misses from this season that you're gonna be like, damn it, man. Like we're really missing those guys specifically on defense. But that just shows exactly where you're going to need to be spending that money. Or, Deshaun Spears, someone who needs to be playing more snaps, that's a dude who could be starting at safety for you next year as well. You got to make sure you retain guys like Deshaun freaking Spears, Ahmad Bro, Dominic McKinley, guys who you've seen here and there, but they've been fantastic when they've played. Harlem Berry, of course. Lane Kiffin is the type of unifying hire to meet all of these objectives, in my opinion, to keep a lot of these guys, to keep a Whit Weeks, to keep a Harold Perkins, to make sure some of these guys may have just returned, because this is going to be very interesting. And I know that as an offensive player, I'm going to get my touches, I'm going to get my yards. That's the thing. I was actually talking about that last night with a friend who we were talking about LSU potentially hiring Lane Kiffin. And I was like, that's one thing that LSU hasn't had from a play calling perspective outside of that 2023 season. And that was a play caller who fed the best players. Who was like, yeah, you can't stop this guy. You can't defend this guy. Well, I'm going to keep throwing the ball or running the ball to this dude until you stop him. And as rudimentary, as simplified, and as kind of like caveman as that sounds, that to me is winning football, where it's like, yeah, Burrow should throw to Jamar Chase until you kind of contest and stop and limit and prevent and shut down a little bit. Give Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase something to think about. Those type of combinations. You only saw that with Jaden Daniels, Malik, Brian, and here and there with Mason Taylor. And it sucks because you have guys like Aaron Anderson, who I think would be fantastic in a Lane Kiffin offense. Berrien Brown, I think that he's another weapon that in a Lane Kiffin offense, in the right situation, would be absolutely explosive. You have the weapons here. Trey'Tez Green with the play calling that Lane Kiffin can draw up inside the red zone, forget about it. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people also mistake Lane Kiffin for, is they think of him as a we brought this up yesterday, and I think it's worth repeating again, that people for some weird reason maintain that Lane Kiffin is like an air raid, pass happy, pass obsessed type of coach or play caller. And that's not his philosophy one bit, not at all. Actually, his philosophy is to, if he could run the football every play and absolutely run up the score, win games, dominate you that way, he would, because he understands what running the football can set up in the passing game, really for your defense, for controlling a game, for really imposing your physical will upon your opponent. And LSU has not had that identity in a long time. That is why I want Lane Kiffin to be the LSU's next head coach, is because I feel like while he hasn't won a head coach while he hasn't won a national championship as a head coach, I literally was about to say won a head coach as a national championship. Well, he hasn't won a national championship as a head coach yet. You see what he can do. Yeah, there was some collapses, but that's what Ole Miss does. Ole Miss loses at home to Kentucky when they're ranked in the top 10. Like, that's what Ole Miss does. LSU has only made a habit of that under the worst of circumstances with lame duck coaches like Brian Kelly, or the last part of the Coach O years, where it was just very embarrassing. LSU were getting destroyed, and there was the pride of being an LSU fan was at an all-time low. Those type of situations. But Lane Kiffin is someone who can come in and kind of cleanse that and revitalize and energize the fan base and really get people going. I have to give Lloyd Courtney from Tingle and Company, and formerly the Jordy Collada Show. He's a good friend of mine, Lloyd. I absolutely love Lloyd. Been talking to him for years, like since I think I became like aware of his existence with the Collada Show. But I absolutely love Lloyd, and I swear to God, I swear Lloyd was always a big proponent of LSU hiring Lane Kiffin. And that Brian Kelly was the wrong guy for that job. And Lloyd, I just like to tell you were right the whole time. 100% right the whole time. As far as Lane Kiffin actually taking the job at LSU, we can get into all, we talked a lot about that in the show yesterday, about kind of the pipe dream of Lane Kiffin joining LSU and being the LSU head coach, and what that would look like, and why that for me would be a good thing. But I think we should get into the weeds of if this can happen or not, and the nuts and the bolts of what LSU has to do to make it happen. And I'm going to tell you right now, LSU have some people lined up who have a lot of money, who love LSU. This isn't, it's not Texas. It's not, certain, tech cities in California. Silicon Valley type of crazy, crazy money. But there's a lot of money in Louisiana that people just for some reason forget about. And there's a lot of people with money in Louisiana who love LSU. And there's a lot of these people who want Lane Kiffin as the head coach of LSU. And there's going to be not only a willingness, but a straight up push to get Lane Kiffin in as LSU's next head coach. Because if you're LSU and you're looking at where you're going to go, a lot of it is a risk. Getting Lane Kiffin is a risk. But here's the thing about the Lane Kiffin risk. At least the fan base would have been like in on the risk, believed in the risk, we're okay with the risk. That to me would be like, okay, like we wanted to see if this would work, and LSU really needs it to work. LSU cannot have another miss in the head coaching department, another head coaching miss. You know, Brian Kelly was someone who, for all the obfuscating, for all of the wordplay, all of the complete just denial of reality, Brian Kelly was never going to be a fit at LSU. He was an elitist. LSU and their fan base have always reacted to men of the people. Men of the people. Leaders of men. And people who will show up to the backyard barbecues, or maybe I should say cookouts, and people who will show up to these events, people who will put their money where their mouth is and be at that funeral, hold that crying mother, you know, walk in those lines and shake those hands. And Brian Kelly was never going to be that guy. I mean, he's protected by security like he was Elvis. Like, that was exactly the comment a father actually of an LSU Tiger told me one time. Every time they saw Brian Kelly with the security, they would go, "Elvis has left the building. Elvis has left the building." Just hilarious. But as far as Brian Kelly actually leaving LSU, I mean, oh my God, my son is just screaming, and I can't even keep my head focused here. Sorry, my son is just screaming. The cradle will rock, and the cradle will rock. Wow, that was awful. Thank God my Chelsea got him to calm down there, because oh my God, my brain can't work. Brian Kelly has already left LSU. Thank God my brain was transported 3 months back. A toddler and a few crazy weird life circumstance changes can do that to you. But forgive me for that slip up. But Brian Kelly leaving LSU, the way that happened, it's kind of almost set it all up for Lane Kiffin to be the next head coach in a way, because like you went so far to that extreme where, you know, maybe the ways of Louisiana don't work. Maybe we should become the Notre Dame of the South. Maybe we should go recruit players from Utah and Nevada and you know, Chino Hills instead of, you know, the deep heart of Louisiana, Texas, Georgia, you know, Mississippi, areas LSU has always recruited with quite a bit of success. Brian Kelly, from just that kind of template on to the Brian Polian vision to never having a fixed special teams coordinator, you knew the details were going to be lost on this guy. And you knew if you won a title under Brian Kelly, it would be in spite of that man. And everything from his elitism, never wanting to meet the fans, never wanting to be among the people, barely even talking to his players, sure as hell never meeting the players' families. We know that for a fact. And LSU Odyssey was reporting that way ahead of people at a time when we took personal shit from media members and other people saying, how dare you say such a thing like that? And then what have you heard? What have you heard? That story backed up time after time after time after time from some of the biggest Tigers who've played under Brian Kelly. And I mean, hearing that from a Blitnikoff, robbed receiver, the all-time great at LSU, Malik Neighbors, was shocking to me. And so it told me that it wasn't just some of the walk-on parents that I talked to. It wasn't just some of the second-string guys who were, I'm pissed off because you're not playing my kid. No, this was everybody. Of course, he had to deal with Jaden Daniels' mother directly to get Jaden Daniels to come to LSU. So that was a rare moment. And I believe he's gotten to know other family members, probably David Weeks, because of having to discuss West Weeks having that red shirt. But knowing Brian Kelly, he probably had like a liaison to discuss that. So just zero personal touch. And Lane Kiffin is the antithesis of that. But for me, the nuts and bolts of why you have to get Lane Kiffin, how you have to do it, you optimize that money that you've got. Before my son was screaming his lungs out, and it just totally sent me into a vocalized death spiral. You need that money. And you've got that money. LSU's got that money. You have to be unified behind this hire. And I think LSU, from a board of supervisors, from a athletic department, from a football program perspective, are all pulling in the same direction here. Not only does Lane Kiffin have prior dudes that he rocked at Ole Miss recently with, but also that being Austin Thomas and KJ Bolden. But then he also got Frank Wilson from his time at Tennessee when he was head coach there. So you've got other connections that I'm just not placing right now, for sure, with Lane Kiffin and this LSU staff. The question is, will Lane Kiffin make the right decision? So many are expecting him to, weirdly, bizarrely, in my opinion, stay at Ole Miss. I think if there is truth to the ultimatum, there's no way he's going to stay at Ole Miss. No way. If the ultimatum thing was a weird bluff or something, a misunderstanding or a complete apparition, just basically a complete ghost of a story, something that really wasn't there, maybe a smoke screen, whatever it was, then maybe that's possible. Maybe Lane could stay at Ole Miss. But when you've got family members going on private jets owned by programs of other teams, and both of these teams openly admit, we want Lane Kiffin as the next head coach here at our programs, whether that's LSU or Florida, there is an ample opportunity for LSU to make the right move here, and make sure they can do this. But Florida, there's continuous. There's continuous reporting from people who aren't, I shouldn't even say reporting, just fans or random posters who are claiming that Lane Kiffin is going to Florida. Lane Kiffin to Florida. Lane to Florida. This is. Let me see here for a second. We're getting some interesting notifications on our phone. Some of these people that a lot of folks in the media world who are like, oh, those guys are fans, they're fake insiders. Some of these people actually know their shit and actually are connected. One of them has helped me break like 4 or 5 stories, and doesn't ever want the credit, doesn't want any spotlight on them whatsoever because of a myriad of reasons. But I'll just say there's someone who doesn't really need the spotlight much. They've already got a lot of it, and they've already got a lot of good fortune their way. But great person and someone I can always rely on. They send me some interesting stuff. I've got to verify. I don't know why the situation needs to come to a close right now. I think it would be shocking if it did, because Kiffin's up against the clock, the clock of the games. You know, you're actually coaching a season that is worthwhile here, that you might actually have a chance to win a championship. And this talk of ultimatum and all this stuff is going to soften different things. If there really wasn't an ultimatum, he wins a championship or comes close at Ole Miss, you know, improved offer, things that are falling in place there. Okay, maybe they stay. I think his family is going to have a big part to play in this decision. I think Lane Kiffin is going to maybe make like 55% of the decision, but I think his family is going to make 45% of the decision as well, because like they're at that age where, you know, kids wouldn't want to be moved around too much to certain areas. They want to keep it in the same area. Maybe this is specifically why I want to go here. I've got friends in Florida, you know, we've got connections in Florida. That makes sense. We've heard that the Kiffin family wants Florida. I just don't know if that's true enough to really run with that. We are going to be live on Tiger Rag Radio. We're going to be live with the Tiger Rag people. Todd Horn, Glenn Gilboa, maybe Andre Champagne. Hopefully. I love Andre Champagne. He's a great dude. Met him going to the USC game a few years ago, and that was crazy. That was a funny. We were like getting into the game and stuff, and like you're usually not supposed to get into the game in a press conference. You're supposed to just be like a freaking robot. But we were kind of like, come on, oh, you know, like we're fans too, you know, like let's be real here. We're fans of just as much as we want to be media people, reporters. I think once you lose that, you've kind of lost the point of doing this. But we'll be live with those guys at 6 p.m. Central. I'm not sure when that's going to be posted or anything like that, but definitely check out their YouTube channel and definitely check out all of their Twitter and follow their stuff, because and definitely follow our stuff, because we will definitely be tagged in things like that, I'm sure. So keep your eyes out for that. We will be having to stop the show at some point to prepare for that. Oh God, my own face posted on the screen while I'm talking. That's kind of weird. My bad.
Everybody, how was the yoga this morning? I know 6 a.m. yoga is non-negotiable. How did you start your day? Was it a great start?
So this is Lane.
It was.
On
Ann
Pat
McLean taught a
McAfee.
great class. It was extremely hard, man. We had some coaches in there. Keith Carter, AD, was in there, and it was a grind this morning.
Okay, so you and the AD obviously doing 6 a.m. yoga. We'll certainly dive into that.
I think I screwed it up.
How was the yoga this morning? I know 6 a.m. yoga is non-negotiable. How did you start your day? Was it a great start?
I don't know what to make of
it
this.
It was. Ann McLean taught a great
strange
class. It was extremely hard, man. We had some coaches in there. Keith Carter, AD, was in there, and it was a grind this morning.
Okay, so you and the AD obviously doing 6 a.m. yoga. We'll certainly dive into that relationship here in a matter of moments. Let's talk about ball, though.
McAfee
Huge win, obviously, over Florida. Right now, we're on our way to another massively successful banger of a season for your Ole Miss Rebels down.
Yeah, I'm not going to eat the copyright for that. Basically, it's a copyright. It's basically a show, in my opinion, where it's like hey, get rid of this rumor of the ultimatum and we'll smooth some things over, and you're going to coach the whole rest of the season. There is no ultimatum. But it would be stunning that the Ole Miss beat writers would be so off, because I've talked to myself a few of so many of these guys, and it's like there's no way you could all be wrong that there was an ultimatum, unless they're kind of reporters who are on the take, who take some money to push that rumor out there. Mitchell Kyles asks a very interesting question. He says, do you still think Kiffin is in the mix even after the interview with Pat McAfee? Good question, my man. I don't think the McAfee interview tells us much of anything. I think the McAfee interview is almost like something between him and Ole Miss about being able to coach the rest of the season and be in the moment and enjoy the moment they're in, and like finish the job. They're going to try and, win a national championship, which is crazy to say when we're talking Ole Miss, but that's the season we're in here. LSU let this get to this point by not being a good team under Brian Kelly for multiple seasons. And Lane Kiffin has only continued to grow and grow and grow. And last year was a big missed opportunity for Kiffin. Huge missed opportunity. That was a team that should have been a playoff team, should have been a contender team. And instead they did very little, barely did anything, barely made a dent. Of course, one of their better efforts, they lose in overtime to LSU in Tiger Stadium, a game that they dominated for like 3.5 quarters of that game. Kiffin made some questionable moves that helped LSU get back in that game. Kiffin has been known to do that with a lot of these situations in these moments where he's been known to let some games slip through his hands. And this season, he's shown a lot more of a killer instinct, but he's also got the killer instinct players who can kind of fulfill that. I think the McAfee interview tells us very little, Mitchell. I think it's more, where is Kiffin and his family wanting to go? And I think no matter how much we want to speculate, no matter how much we want to guess on the timeline or when this is going to happen, I think the only two people who could possibly break this story, I wish I could say ourselves, maybe we can. Maybe we will be able to get a piece of information that can help us break it, which would be crazy. But I think the only two people who can break the story is either a very spoon-fed reporter who is like chosen by Lane Kiffin, like, hey, my guy, McAfee, whoever, I'm going to stay at Ole Miss, or I'm going to go to LSU, whatever, or Lane Kiffin himself and like the school themselves, wherever he's moving to. Or Ole Miss maybe outing it, that's. I think this is going to be such a fluid situation, and I don't think it's a situation that's so easy to nail down. I do think the obvious move for Kiffin here, especially if there's been rough treatment and an ultimatum and all that stuff, you definitely go to LSU. I don't think there's a reason to stay at Ole Miss, especially if LSU are all in on you. All in, full commitment. I don't think you can turn that away to stay at Ole Miss, where like maybe this is that one magical season and then it's time to go. And then you stay too long, you miss the window, LSU goes get somebody else, a Kelvin Shepherd perhaps, and then that guy is, lightning in a bottle and off to the races, and you never get that shot again. Kiffin, though, is also vengeful, and I think he feels like LSU should have given him an interview when they hired Kelly, and they didn't even interview Kiffin. So maybe he's like, yeah, you're coming, screw you. But hey, that was Scott Woodward. It's Verge Osbury now. That can be the way that they sell it too. You obviously know that LSU is in the mix by Layla going and doing the tour. And LSU should be in the mix just kind of automatically. It's really just where does Kiffin and his family want to go? I mean, I hate to be boring about it. I wish I could provide more and try and have more intrigue to the story, but I feel like it's just really a very straight up situation now at this point. Chase Turner says Lane isn't leaving Ole Miss. Maybe not. Maybe not. I just think if there's an ultimatum and all these shenanigans, I think it would be nuts if he stayed. But also, I think it'd be nuts if he stayed anyway with all these options. And I'm not talking about Florida as being a viable option, but I feel like there's other schools out there that would hire Kiffin. And I think LSU, you've got to understand this is going to be a gamble because Kiffin, things can change. He can change with the environment and the situation around him. And let's don't forget, and we need to talk about this and be honest about this. What is one of the biggest demons for Lane Kiffin that he has admitted to and talked a lot about? Alcoholism. What is Louisiana not only known for, but almost state sponsored and endorsed, but drinking booze, alcoholism, pure alcoholism. How can Lane stay sober in an environment like that? Can he? Because Oxford probably got more of these preppy frat boy kids doing more coke than they are drinking these days. But LSU, Louisiana, the vibe of the alcohol, that could be something that could play a role here of why maybe he doesn't come to LSU. You've got to think of all this stuff when you're, a coach actually has these options at his fingertips. Where's he going? Where's he going to go to? Sometimes it comes down to these finer margins of, I'd rather not be here. I'd rather be here instead. This environment suits me, or wow, I cannot. My lifestyle is not compatible with that place. Stuff that you're just not thinking about because you're thinking about the football fit. And the football fit with Lane Kiffin is magnetized molten fire. But the off-field component could be something that could be a combustive agent of doom, where Kiffin, alcohol, we know that played a role in some of his, how should I say this? Some of his prior moments where things didn't go right for Lane Kiffin, some of his most embattled moments. And I think he would want to stay away from that. How well can he stay away from that in Louisiana? I think he can do it. I think there's no problem there. It's just something also to think about. Maybe I'm getting too much into the finer margins here. But Andres Valencia says, good information or bad information? Well, you tell me, sir. Has this been good information? Has it been bad information? You tell me, sir. You tell me. If you're meaning about Kiffin, good information, bad information. I mean, like, this is just a situation that's up in the air right now. We have to see where Kiffin is going to move. If he's going to stay, if he's going to go. I mean, there's three options. LSU, Florida, stay at Ole Miss. But I think you're going to get clues soon here. One clue there, one clue here about whether the ultimatum is real. Those type of things coming up. Mitchell Kyle says, after all, he is a master of deception. He's still Lane Kiffin, but more of a family man nowadays. We've seen this type of stuff before with Lane Kiffin with contract manipulation, but that type of stuff makes me feel like Lane Kiffin is built with championship stardust and it just hasn't been at the right place. And I think you put someone who is that hungry, that petty, that like driven every morning, and you put them in purple and gold. He actually recruits. He can call plays if he needs to. It's really up to making sure that you keep Blake Baker, or if you move on to Pete Golding, that situation is going to keep going upward and not backwards in the way that Golding was at Bama, where it just seemed like at Alabama, Pete Golding's defenses just kept getting worse and worse and worse, culminating in them getting shredded by Georgia in a title game. And then Pete Golding at Ole Miss, it seemed like he got better and better and better. Last year, one of the best defenses in college football, top 10 defense. I think actually a top 5 defense. They were incredible, that defense last year for Ole Miss. And then I think a top 30 defense, top 25 this season. I'm not 100% on that, but I remember they were actually still pretty good. But I'd rather you keep Blake Baker. But either way, if you shore up the defense for Lane Kiffin, you bring him to LSU with the skill position guys that could stick around in this offense. You retool the offensive line in the way that Lane Kiffin likes to do so for the running game. You install a lot of his running game schemes. You get LSU back to being a controlling powerhouse, hit you in the mouth offense that then can throw the football over your head and absolutely shred you to pieces. Like that, to me, that is where LSU's mission must be. And I'm telling you, the search committee, their number one target is Lane Kiffin. And we've been saying it ever since the news of Saban is in Louisiana, and he was in Louisiana, and he was being offered the position by LSU. And he did think about this. He said no. Now, you moved on to your 1B, Lane Kiffin. Okay. Can LSU close? Can LSU close the deal? We heard that question asked by many who didn't seem to really think that LSU could close the deal with signing Lane Kiffin. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I don't know if LSU will have a problem closing this deal here, because here's the thing. LSU have had issues securing the right coaches, securing the right. We've had a closing issue like almost all around just in the last kind of era. The Marcus Freeman thing. That saga of defensive line coaches that Coach O just kept searching for. And then, I mean, my God, I think there was like 3 or 4 sagas of defensive line coaching searches. It was ridiculous. It was absolute just madcap insanity. By the way, look at the hat there. Supposed to show that off a bit more. Iconic brand. My man. Yeah, that was like the worst sponsorship display there ever. We'll get it going. The production values will improve. I also like the idea of kind of keeping the production values like almost retarded in a way, because then they're like, it's almost like a Wes Anderson movie. It's almost like this weird, like, nothing has to be exact. I mean, you guys, when you turn this show on, you don't know exactly what it's going to look like. It's not just always going to be me sitting in the man cave with a bunch of this and that and this and that in the background. Sometimes it could be me not on the screen. Sometimes it's me interviewing somebody and we're both there. Sometimes it's just pictures and stuff like this, you know. But yeah, we like to try and mix it up really to make it interesting for you guys. It's not really like lack of professionalism or whatever. It's more, I don't believe in having some like set exact way to do things. It's more by feel. Like you plan everything out, but then the presentation and the kind of push for it, sometimes it can be a few different ways. Oh yes. Coming soon. You see the best in it. You know, I think Kiffin, we've seen things about him talking about his sobriety and moving on from drinking and stuff like that. I think he would be fine in Louisiana. I think he could handle the vibe there and the drinking atmosphere and stuff like that without getting back into it. As long as the fans remain respectful and keep it away from him and all that stuff. I don't know if he's like able to drink or any of that. I don't know what his, and I don't want to, I kind of feel icky even talking about it, but I feel like it's something Lane Kiffin has talked about many, many times and has been very open about. So I didn't feel like it was crossing a line there to discuss that being a potential issue with Louisiana, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, that area specifically, just being a haven for drinking. That just can't really be ignored. Will Lane be LSU's next head coach? Definitely won't be this guy. This was the moment Kelly lost the job. This is the moment Kelly lost the job, guys. He insulted Theo Vaughn. No, I don't know. He probably walked up and said something really dumb, though. I really wish we could get the unreleased audio of Matt House running up to Mekhi Wingo and what he said at the end of that bowl game. Because that would be hilarious to hear. We will keep you updated. We've got somebody from Ole Miss, a player who just texted me and said, I don't know what's going on right now, man. And they're very, very top player at Ole Miss, someone who would know. And I think right now things are just like we're saying. They're up in the air. Maybe some family preferences are known by the agent and some things are being checked out. LSU, Florida, inside and out, kind of making sure there's nothing that no stone unturned, especially with LSU and allegations, NCAA allegations, and some of the penalties we've had in the past. Any of these, it seems like LSU always has hidden bullshit that the NCAA comes at us with. And so, and, I just don't know why you would want to go to Florida. Don't know why you would want to go to Florida. We've got a lot of you in the chat. This is awesome, but I wish I could give you something concrete right now, but I've got to be honest. Ole Miss players are telling me they don't know. And these are players who would tell me what's going on. They'd say, oh, yeah, this is happening. Once again, we said this earlier, we are going to be on Tiger Rag radio in less than an hour. And so we might have to be getting off here in just a second to prepare for that. But definitely check that out. Definitely follow those guys on Tiger Rag Radio. We were on their show last year. And I think I stupidly said something. That's me. That's on the left. That's the really stupid looking guy on the left. And then that's Jay Ward, badass safety and defensive back in the NFL for the Vikings on the right. That's us outside of LSU Ops in the fabled balcony. What was I saying? I lost my train of thought. Oh, yeah, but I will be on Tiger Rag Radio. We were there last year. That's what I was saying. We were on there last year talking about the Texas A&M game, and I thought LSU were going to dominate Connor Wegman and get Connor Wegman hurt and all this stuff, and I thought we were going to really rough Wegman up and control the game, and we did. And just like Blake Baker. I had no clue about Marcel Reed. No clue. I knew a little bit about him, but I knew he was the backup, but it didn't really register. So hands up. I thought LSU would dominate A&M, and it looks like we were going for that in that direction. But things turned once Marcel Reed came in and Garrett Nussmeier started turning over the football. Michael Van Buren, LSU's 2026 starting quarterback. We're going to talk about that next. LSU's starting quarterback role for 2026. Now, LSU are going to have to go in the portal. There's no way around this because you're about to lose Colin Hurley, it looks, through the transfer portal. Colin Hurley has taken personal time away from the team. That has been confirmed by Frank Wilson. Nothing more has been said. But I think you can surmise from kind of the writing on the wall what is going to happen next for Colin Hurley. We hope it doesn't. I would love for Colin Hurley to stay a Tiger. But I understand the young man's got to go somewhere where he can get an opportunity. And he just saw Michael Van Buren kind of secure his future while Colin Hurley wasn't able to even get an opportunity. So Michael Van Buren, his performance against Alabama, his performance in these last few games, his performance specifically this last week against Arkansas, it's not like he lit the world on fire. His first few passes could have been intercepted at one point. I love the no hesitation, willingness to throw it up there and give the receivers a chance. But the inaccuracy, I mean, it's a reason he threw 11 touchdowns but threw 7 interceptions as a freshman at Mississippi State. But I love the moxie. I love the ambition. I love the drive from Michael Van Buren. I love what I'm seeing from Michael Van Buren. He kept it simple. LSU were able to control the football game. Harlem Berry there on the ground. Michael Van Buren went off for a 35-yard run that was huge in the game, decisive in the game. And he started dropping dimes. He started really fitting passes into tight windows. I get it. LSU still scored 23 points. I get it. LSU still made some horrible plays and were actually extremely wasteful in the red zone once again. But you won the game. You got the field goals. You got some type of positivity offensively because you controlled a game for once. You helped your defense out for once. You had the ball for 9 more minutes, 16 more plays, and you rushed for 155 yards. Yes, LSU's defense actually gave up 175, which is crazy. But LSU, with every yard of their 155, actually controlled clock, actually worked their opponents and wore down their opponents. And it's a joy to see. We haven't seen that in a while. LSU, man, this is a place where if you want to be a Heisman winning quarterback, you can come in here and you can work your way into doing this. You can make your dreams become reality. But it's also a very, very, very difficult thing to do. It's also a very difficult thing to overcome if you have a new head coach come in and say, I've got my own kind of thoughts on this. This is the direction I want to go in. Michael Van Buren, you're not part of our plans, not part of our decision making. See ya. That's possible. But I think what you saw from Michael Van Buren, it's such a shame because if you had known that Garrett Nussmeier was not only injured in multiple areas, but like so injured that he could barely throw the football, barely sustain the offensive rhythm, generate any offensive points, anything, that Michael Van Buren actually was probably your better option this season. Because if you had been able to control the ball for 9 more minutes than opponents with this defense this season, you are getting out of Oxford with that win. Ole Miss could only score, 25 points, something like that. Like, you are winning that game if you're able to control the ball. If you're able to have a Michael Van Buren out there who's not turning it over, actually making plays, not getting in these negative play situations nonstop. And that's the thing. You saw Michael Van Buren. It's not like he was out there being Michael Vick. He was just using his legs to get us out of negative plays, out of always being down in the markers. You're always against the chains, always 3rd and long, 2nd and 9, these type of situations. And that's when Joe Sloan, would make the worst type of play calls. And those are the situations LSU found themselves in way too often. And Michael Van Buren, I don't know if he can be LSU's starter going forward. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know who LSU could get out of the transfer portal. There could be some stunning names that blow our minds that guys have go into the portal. But Van Buren is showing me something that is very enticing. And I think, yes, you're going to get Nuss for these next 2 games so that we don't, waste Michael Van Buren's red shirt. But you're definitely going to get, in my opinion, at least you should see him. You definitely should see Michael Van Buren in the bowl game, whatever bowl game it will be. Probably another freaking Texas bowl. You'll definitely see him again, I think, in the bowl game, because it doesn't count against his eligibility playing in the bowl game. And if that happens, that is another sign of this is the direction LSU are going in. And Michael Van Buren could be a good quarterback at LSU. He could be a great quarterback at LSU if he can put it together. He's going to have to work hard. He's going to have to work on that accuracy. But there's something about him with some of these intangibles that are very enticing and are very positive for a team. And really, it just pisses me off because this is a season where Michael Van Buren actually could have been that dude for LSU to really glue the offense and the defense together by just controlling games. We don't have to score a ton of points because we can't score a ton of points. But what we can do is control proceedings, dominate the football. That's something I really like to see out of Michael Van Buren. I thought that was absolutely the difference in the game and why LSU won that game against Arkansas. It was a 1-point win, but you won it because you dominated the game and Arkansas did not. You made plays, you consistently had the football, and you wore them down. It's always going to be close against Arkansas, duh. But it was very impressive that Michael Van Buren was able to gut out such a tough type of win in his first LSU start in the Battle of the Boot. That's freaking badass. I don't know how good Michael Van Buren is or can be at this point. He's someone who is evolving as we speak, as he plays. And his career is going to take some twists and turns, and we're just going to have to see. Everybody, I'm going to have to hop off now, get ready for my show with the great people at Tiger Rag Radio. Everybody, thank you so much. Have an amazing rest of your night. We'll be talking to you soon. Have an amazing night. Hold each other tight until the morning light. We love y'all. Oh, one second. Paul Tarver, the big story coming out soon is higher-ups on LSU staff knew how much Nuss was hurt. Not a doctor, but my eyes don't. Dude, Paul, we've been all over that story already, my man. We've been saying that story for months now. People blasted us for saying that in August and September. I will tag you in those posts because, brother, we took so much shit for reporting it, and it was true. But yeah, a lot of people knew how badly Nuss was hurt, and they still just played him, and it made no sense because Michael Van Buren could have been the quarterback to save this season. Paul, thank you for watching, my brother. I definitely got to share those links with you because I'm not trying to say I'm the knower of all or any of that type of BS, but we have gotten a lot of public praise and love for actually being ahead of the curve on that, and literally the only one reporting it. Everyone else was saying he was fine. He was absolutely not fine, and he never was after those injuries in fall camp. And before he got those injuries, Nuss was looking on fire, and he was throwing bomb after bomb after bomb in fall camp. So it immediately affected him big time. Everybody, thank you so much for watching the show. Definitely check out our appearance on Tiger Rag coming up here in a bit. We'll be posting that when we can on LSUODYSSEY.com as well. Everybody, have a good night.